Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me. And I guess my first question is going to be to Ray, because you've been doing this you've been involved in funding of cancer research for a very long time from very many venues, such as NCI, of course, as a reviewer and a center director, also CPRIT, also Stand Up to Cancer, and I'm probably missing something.
Sure. Yeah, Paul, this is something, a passion of mine. I've really wanted to help do whatever I can to make sure that cancer research gets funded and obtain more support for these kinds of projects. I've also been involved with the Kleberg Foundation in Texas, and so all the way up from just putting out the RFAs, reviewing the projects, and thinking a little bit higher level about strategy and the role at the MUSC Foundation. There is a very well-established sort of portfolio of different grants for young researchers, mid-level researchers, and then also for well-established researchers. There's also funding for these virtual centers that Ryan can talk about. But what we want to do is really fund the most cutting-edge science that's going to have the biggest impact. We don't always know what that is, but I think there's a process in place that's been successful. Ryan and I are thinking about how we can fine-tune that and just make sure that those important cutting-edge projects get funded, and so that we can accelerate discoveries and get these findings into the clinic.
Thank you, Ryan. What you're coming by way of industry, of course, and could we talk about your vision and how your background fits into all of this, and how it drives?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. I come from industry. I spent most of my career working in pharmaceutical R&D groups in the field of drug discovery for oncology and for other diseases. And the thing that I really realized while I was in industry was, I always thought about where do these projects we're working on come from, right? How do we decide we want to make a drug that does X, Y, or Z or targets these pathways? And these inevitably always reach back to academic discoveries of one type or another. And we were always looking for new targets and new ways and new approaches, because the existing drugs have their limitations and existing approaches have their limitations. We were always trying to look for what was new, to be competitive with the other companies, but also to really, to benefit patients, to bring something that works better to patients. And so I feel like the bridge between academic research and what happens in industry to kind of scale out drugs and therapies and diagnostics to reach patients in a large way. There's a lot of challenges in bringing discoveries forward from their academic starting points to ways that they can reach more patients. And so I really got excited about working on the academic side more in helping facilitate some of these projects with funding, but also with access. It's not just about funding for what we do here at the MUSC Foundation. We try hard to bring people together around topics. We bring experts together from different fields. We look across fields. We look at the interdisciplinary interfaces between fields where we can bring people together. We look at the, kind of the interfaces between industry and academia, and try to bring people together who have kind of common purpose to get new drugs and therapies and diagnostics to patients. There's a lot of good academic discoveries, I think, in the past that have been either left behind or moved forward much more slowly than they needed to be. So I'm interested in how we can be helpful to accelerate these things going forward.
So it's early science and it's team science is what you're thinking. And it's also kind of crossing from academia to industry. But how does it actually work? How does the rubber meet the road, gentlemen?
Well, Paul, there is a venture philanthropy component that Ryan can explain, but there are certain projects that are a little bit further along that need some support to get over or closer to the finish line, and so there is a component of that at the MUSC Foundation as well.
Mm-hmm. Ryan?
Yeah, I can tell you a little about our venture side, and even but also to address the question with a different aspect of what we do. We really focus on translational. I mean, we started the foundation focused on translational science, and really that means, right, taking discoveries from into the clinic, and sometimes that needs to be industrial because it costs a lot of money, and so you need to get some bridge to get things from academia and industry to help pay for that. Other times it may not be the case. Maybe something can go forward in the clinical setting, without money from big pharma, at least to a certain point. So we're always looking for what would be the biggest impact of funding, right? So we've given $150 million in grants the last 4.5 years, and we give grants, and these are to move forward, move science forward either by individual investigators or teams, move things forward to the next kind of inflection point, help de-risk things that would otherwise be too risky to become their own venture to spin out if they were going to become a new company, or go into the clinic in any other way that would require people to put more money into them. So we're always looking at that space. We don't limit ourselves to the translational domain. We look at things earlier in the discovery stage or basic research stage. We do fund some things in the clinical stage, but often we feel like that's the space where other people with deep industry pockets could take things forward to, like a pivotal clinical trial that requires 1,000 patients and 100 sites or something. We're not looking to fund those either. We're looking to be catalytic, be accelerative, and really help move things forward through that translational space. And so when it comes to investing, we do that if a way that a discovery that we've either helped or someone else has even helped, it doesn't have to be limited to our grants. If the way that we can help some science get into the clinic and reach more, potentially reach more patients, if it's successful there, sometimes that requires spitting out into a venture where you can get other investors to put some money in as well, and we will help seed that. We're never we're almost never the lead investor. We're typically a part of a syndicate, but we will often be the first investor, and we'll help de-risk the investment for other investors who may want to join us and even go in a larger way than us and kind of help move something forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, how much money is involved? It's more than 150 million. It's 500 million. Just
so it's 500 million going forward. So 500 million is the future. So 150 is the retrospective. We've given 100.
No, this is an acceleration.
Yeah, so exactly.
You've accelerated. So it's $500 million going forward. And how does one apply, and what will it pay for?
Paul, that's information is really well outlined on the website. There's a lot of details with the explanation of the different kinds of awards, Aspire, Endeavor, and those kinds of things. So Ryan can run through that, but the real nitty-gritty of how to get that application in and everything, I think it's well described on the website. And unlike the Breakthrough Foundation that you previously interviewed Tyler on, we are supporting all types of cancer research, not just the most deadly. And so we're open to looking at all solid and heme malignancies and all types of cancer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure people will find the website now that they know it's $500 million. It's probably worth their while to take a look and see if they might just have a project somewhere out there. But it's basically I guess I should probably ask about about peer review, because these organizations are as good as peer review, as we've all seen many times over.
Well, there's a scientific advisory board. It's got some names on there that you would recognize from your working at the Cancer Letter, and that some of those are reviewed by that group. Some are reviewed in-house, and the lower level awards, I think Ryan and the team there's a team of PhD scientists at the foundation who manage the portfolio, and they get involved in some of those early reviews. So Ryan, you want to review that with Paul?
Sure. We work, so we have a scientific advisory committee chaired by Ross Levine, and they work with us on a number of our grant programs. But we have about 5 different grant programs that we do, and they all have peer review, all of them, and they have different flavors of it. So Some of them we will create year to year a bespoke review committee for that particular award program. That often we do that for flexibility. A given RFP, request for proposals, will happen around a specific focused theme, right? Like, for example, we did a workshop in 2020, and then we had a call for proposals on chemically induced proximity, which is a chemical biology theme that's very it's a very active area of research these days, right? And in cancer and elsewhere. And so we had a review committee comprised of experts in that field who did not apply for the grant, and then we have other people who applied for the grant. And so we were able to create kind of bespoke panels, kind of fit for purpose of experts. Other programs are more, as Ray mentioned, we're open to every kind of cancer research. So some of our award programs, like our Emerging Leader Award, where the RFP is going to open very soon, that's any type of cancer. And, you can propose anything. And so we have a panel of 12 experts who have worked with us, year over year, and they really we select them. They're all leaders in their respective subfields within cancer research, but we cover a lot of different ground. There's folks who have a genomics and genetics background, folks who have a chemistry background, folks who have a data science background, folks who have a pathology background, right, et cetera. Model systems, translational science. So we like kind of bringing people together who have these interdisciplinary backgrounds, and we find there's a lot of energy in the room when groups like that get together to discuss new ideas and new projects. And so most of our committees have some flavor like that.
Well, is there a connection between Ray stepping in and the 500 million?
Well, I think that Alex has wanted to continue and accelerate his support even before I got on the scene. So, I can't take any credit for that, but it's, I think the timing is good. The track record for the foundation's been spectacular. And as you'll see, when you look at the portfolio, the projects and the scientists have, are, really advancing the field. So I think he's been happy with that, and really, wants to have as big an impact as possible, and realizes that, more money, would do more basically going forward.
Mm-hmm. How quickly will the spend take place of the 500 million?
That's a good question. Ryan and I haven't talked about that, but we're not going to just throw it out there. We want to make sure that the projects are high, have high merit and deserve the kind of funding that we want to provide. So we're really looking for the top science, and so I guess it depends on how much of that we see and how those applications look. But we haven't been given a time limit as far as I know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, fascinating. So you could do it in a year. You could do it in 10.
I think that would be
a year.
I think that would be difficult.
That'd be hard. we want to keep, like, we're very, the approach we were just talking about in terms of our approach to peer review. We don't want, we want to maintain that, right? That's really that takes, there's a lot of work that goes into building those networks and getting that done. So we want to keep that. So it will require some pacing, I think, to do this. So I think we're looking over the next half decade. I mean, but it's not anything that's been mapped out in detail. Yeah. So we've been around for about 5 years. So we're looking at the next 5 years, really. I think that's sort of that's the lens we're looking through this.
Mm-hmm. And who owns the intellectual property? Who owns the discoveries? Is it the foundation? Is it the people who just make the discoveries? But don't you also invest some of the money?
Yeah, there's a small percentage of those kinds of investments, but in the group of projects that are underway, we don't demand all the intellectual property, but sometimes there are opportunities for the foundation, and they take advantage of it.
So what were some of the ones that you've done? I think I know of one. What have you invested in? Which
I can take that. We've made 6 investments. One you may have heard of is in Grail. Our first investment in 2017, we invested in Grail, and that was recently acquired by Illumina, and that was that was in the very early days of the Mark Foundation. And that was, we really believe in liquid biopsy as a potentially transformative technology for cancer early detection. And really we funded, part of that was impact-based actually. Grail was raising money at the time to fund a study to look in nasopharyngeal cancer in particular using liquid biopsy to fund an additional clinical study that extended their Series B. And so we kind of did it to invest in a return that would help grow the foundation, but also for impact. Our other portfolios, the rest of our portfolio we've invested in since then is a mix of things that projects that have ventures that have spun out with IP from our grants. So one example of that is C2i Genomics, which is another liquid biopsy company, but they have a different approach where they're looking at minimal residual disease and doing liquid biopsy in a different way. And that's something where we gave that team a grant. That grant was catalytic to get them some clinical data that they could then use to help raise some funding and to get and to start and launch a new company. And they've had a very successful Series A and Series B in the last 2 years, and they've done very well. And things are going well there. And then another example, that's a company called Interius, which one of our Emerging Leader Award grantees started a cell therapy focused company. It's an in vivo CAR T focused company. Other companies we've invested in, such as Accent Therapeutics, have not been linked to our grants. They're linked to areas of biology that we are passionate about. In that case, RNA modifying proteins, right? This is an area that we feel is an emerging field. We felt that this company was taking the good kind of risks to kind of move some really interesting projects forward in their portfolio. And so we have a full-time venture principal who really treats this with a professional approach to investing. Although the difference between us and a venture capital firm is that any returns come back into the Mark Foundation and stay in the foundation, and we can use those returns down the road to give grants and things like that.
So what's the percentage that you're putting in to venture? So of the 500 million, how much can go to venture?
Well, there's not a limit. We expect some of that to have a return. So in the last 4.5 years, we've given 150 million in grants and $20 million in investment.
Okay.
So that ratio may grow a little bit. I think our growth towards the growth and maturation of the investment side is coming up a little bit alongside the grants now. So that ratio may increase a little bit, but I think that'll give you some sense of where we would look to keep things as a percentage, maybe in the 4-to-1, 5-to-1 kind of range. But over time, right, we expect these to give returns. So we still think we'll be making $500 million in grants, even though we'll be making a substantial number of investments, because we should get some returns. If we don't, that's okay, but we will be careful not to put too much in the investment basket just in case. But we're hopeful to get returns and growth from there as well.
Yeah, but with Grail, you must have made some money. So that...
we did. So we hope to repeat that. And yes.
So that wouldn't be a bad thing to do. So yeah, what is there anything we've forgotten? Anything I forgot to ask? Anything we missed?
Well, Paul, in addition to the investments and the Alex's support, I mean, there have been some donations to just generally support cancer research. So the foundation does accept those. It's not been a big focus so far, but that's another potential avenue for the future.
Mm-hmm. Anything else we've forgotten? Anything you might want to just say to people who might be considering applying for a grant? What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, we really, like I said, it's not a secret. We want to fund the best science possible. So it is a fairly competitive process, and we do get the foundation has gotten a lot of applications for each sort of round of these, but one sort of soft spot is we love to support early investigators, and at a time where it's critical for them to, really get on a steep trajectory. So for example, when somebody gets their first R01, they're locked into that research and those specific aims that they've got to do. If they have something on the side they would like to explore that could be exciting, it's difficult unless they get some additional support from a foundation or their startup funds or whatever. So we really have a keen eye towards trying to figure out, those particular folks, because we want to make sure we have a next generation of scientists and physician scientists and basic scientists to keep doing this research. And so if we can sort of add a little fuel to that, that's going to really allow them to make some headway in a very positive way, I think that factors in.
Ryan, anything we've forgotten?
Yeah, I would echo that. We really do want to support young investigators who are taking risks. I think we really want to support folks who are, we want to hear about your idea. It's a really good idea, but it's not going to get readily funded today by the normal mechanisms. But it's something that, it'd be a shame if we waited 5 years for you to kind of scrap together here and there on the side the preliminary data you would need to justify it. We want to hear about those ideas now and maybe talk about ways we could help catalyze them, de-risk them, fund some of that now, get you started earlier, and do that on the individual scale and also on the team scale. We have an approach to team. I want folks to think about team science as well and to think about the Mark Foundation that we have. We have a number of programs. The Endeavor program is one in particular that we launched last year, and we'll have another round of this year that are focused on teams. And we want the same thing there. We want people who are, we'd love to see junior investigators as parts of these teams. We'd love to see people who are taking risks. I know it's cliche to say high risk, high reward, but we feel like we've put mechanisms in place to actually, it's not easy to actually find and fund those kinds of projects. And that's what we're really trying to do. That's why we have a small staff here of 10 people, 70% PhD scientists. We spend most of our time really just trying to find those projects and programs that truly are the high risk, high reward projects and try to kind of point the impact of funding, realize the impact of funding by pointing our resources that way. So that's what, so for investigators and teams, that are thinking a little bit, thinking a little bit differently and looking to take risks in cancer research, looking to work across fields and disciplines and to kind of try to do something new. Those are the folks we want to hear from. And I should emphasize it's global. It's not, we're based in New York. We have a lot of our grants are in the US, but a quarter of our funding today goes outside the US, and there's no structural limitations for us to go out beyond the US. And so we're interested in just wherever we can find these kinds of projects around the globe, we're looking to fund that kind of
I didn't realize it's global.
Yeah, but Paul, we've partnered with Cancer Research UK, to make the funding level higher when, both sides put in some support. And also we're open to partnering with others to, make the research go further. And that has happened in a couple of instances as well.
That's fascinating. Well, there's some great opportunities out there. What about any new mechanisms of funding? Any new programs you have in mind that might be happening now that there's Ray is there and 500 million is there?
Well, Ryan and I are bouncing some things around. There's nothing really ready for prime time, but people should stay tuned because we do want to stay very innovative and on the cutting edge. And there's always sort of different ways to support individuals. And so we're not opposed to thinking about that. I'm not saying we're going to start anything tomorrow, but and the foundation's already been bouncing some interesting ideas around that you'll hear about later.
Well, I'm certainly gonna wait. What about the public policy advocacy? Are you thinking of that? Because not so much public policy as advocacy for research. Is that something you see a role in, or is that something like, for example, if I have a question, can I call you on the subject?
You have to call Ryan about that. No,
I'll call Ryan.
I'm just kidding. So that has not been one of our major foci. We're really bench science, translational science, some clinical science, and moving that kind of components forward. But I don't know, Ryan, have you thought about public policy?
Yeah, no, not as, I thought about it a lot actually, but we feel like it's not, that's not the space that we've spent a lot of time trying to make a difference in. We care about it and we try to stay up on it, but it's, I think a little bit last year, we were interested in the impact of COVID funding. We're very concerned for our researchers and the research community at large, what the impact of lab shutdowns meant, and what the impact of, we realized that, as much as we are able to give some nice grants, that, the majority of funding still comes from other sources. And we were aware of some of the challenges that I think the COVID situation was creating for access to funding from those other sources. And so we were very interested in the policies that are being shaped to address that at the, at different levels in the community and in governments and things. So we weighed in with our thoughts from time to time in favor of, just trying to make sure folks don't forget about cancer research. It's really important, and not at the expense of researching COVID. We think that's obviously important too. But we wanted, so we've been a voice for that, and that's probably about the limit of our policy forays, is to kind of really just contribute our voice to that, to make sure that that the folks don't forget about cancer, because it's not going to forget about us.
Well, thank you so much. One last chance for anything we might have forgotten.
Well, thanks so much, Paul, for taking the time to do this. And for those of you out there that are really interested in the foundation, I just would encourage you to Google the Mark Foundation for Cancer Research. It'll come right up. It's a beautiful website. It really describes what we're doing, and anything that we're going to announce going forward will show up on that website, so they can check in from time to time. And hopefully the cancer community will pay attention to what's going on and seek some support from the Mark Foundation.